that's where the sadness is, not in the passing or the death, is that, oh my gosh, this home like that, you know?
I can see that with them, that they've been married for 35 years. That's a long time to be with somebody and just like tough to let go.
The ones that were sad were the ones that had no family. Who were relying on the Arizona healthcare system to make decisions for them.
See, this is what I told you, but I don't have kids, right? So this is my nightmare situation where I'm just alone under the state.
I'll look out for you.
I'll be there.
You have a husband, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you know,
What if he goes first?
that is my scenario. It is all worst case scenario.
And you know, we do, like, we have those, even if we're like a spiritually awake person, we have those little fears.
Yeah.
We have those.
Now, that has always been, I mean, I'm a lot better, I didn't know, but at one point it was really bad. Like, this is all I thought about.
My fear is becoming like helpless and feeble and my kids seeing me that way. That's the one that I sort of like work with and try to brush under the carpet and all that. I hate that idea. It's like, you know, part of me would like to bow down and stay pretty. Because
Iowa.
They have to take care of
You're from Iowa?
yeah, or see me
What town? Oh, really?
Like Superwoman.
I didn't know that.
Superwoman to my daughter.
Sure.
You know, oh my God, that's my worst. Like that's my worst nightmare. Is thinking about that. So.
It's one of the Quad Cities, isn't
The
it?
things that we.
No, that's
ideas we get in our head, right?
Moline,
That's Quad Cities.
and yeah, a couple other, yeah.
That's so good.
I know. He needs to step into that.
So nice.
Playing for us, not taking
Things are gonna
seriously the
happen.
gifts that he has.
Things are gonna happen. He's so gifted. I was telling my mom about it. One day on my own telephone.
This
Oh, seriously?
ship is getting lopsided.
You're so cute.
Everybody's sitting on this
So
side.
taken by his charm, he's so cute.
Oh, you're so cute. I saw him, I took him last night. He was helping a friend. Yeah, that was not too far from where
This is what happens when I talk about kids. I say,
Oh, you're so precious. Oh, you're so precious. To know me is to know that tears roll over everything.
no, I'm not. I'm generally not.
Oh, you're
Even
not?
when I leave and somebody else is scared.
Oh,
And I'm happy that they know, like, it's so scary. So weird. I don't cry in movies. I'm not a
Oh,
crier.
you don't? Oh my gosh, but that triggers something.
Sorry?
I do.
You do?
I'm
Oh, I'm
not
such a
like
I
crier.
saw some cars in the window, but I think there's actually something going on across the street. Something, yeah. It's kind of a small group tonight.
The tears are rolling, no, rolling my felt water.
Okay, we should get started. We have 600 people online watching. I think so. I don't think so. Well, it's Mark. Hey, Mark. You want to pull that out a little bit so you don't run into the...
Oh, like we didn't have the stand last time, that's what's different. I was like, what's different about the spacing here? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Welcome.
Everybody's on one side.
I know, it's good. The kind of a lopsided vote tonight. We have to disperse everybody differently. So, anybody have any questions about their practice? I've never asked that right off the bat, but I'm gonna. No questions. I get all my questions online and through conversations throughout the week. Nothing here, nothing live, you know. But I got a question online. Somebody asked me about why and it's not just me, but it was directed towards me, why I teach meditation from a perspective of letting go, you know, renunciation. And you know, most everybody here has heard me talk about, you know, really the foundation of the practice is reducing and letting go, you know. And they asked why that is, because we know that there's a lot of different kinds of meditation, a lot of different, you know, ways to meditate. We can do more concentrative practices. We can do choiceless awareness. We can actually, a lot of times, in the Saturday program, we're working with contemplation. And a lot of people look at that as a type of meditation too, where you have a subject and you work on it. And you can do it in a meditation posture and with your eyes closed and everything. But the idea of letting go is when the Buddha first started teaching about renunciation or letting go, it was from the perspective of letting go of things that we find sticky, the things that we're grasping onto. And it ties in with the idea that several teachers, I don't know if the Buddha actually said it, but the idea that it's not the self that is grasping, but it's the grasping that creates the self. So, and I kind of look at it a little bit differently. I've heard that for many, many years, and I kind of just recently kind of been looking at it a little bit differently. Like, as soon as there's grasping, that the self is automatically brought about. I mean, it happens simultaneously that we grasp and there's the self right there. And so that explains very well what we should be letting go of, the things that we're trying to hang on to and freeze, basically. It's like the scenes in a projector, I don't even know if they use projectors in movies these days, but when I was a kid, you could look up and there you could see the projector booth, and there was a window, and the projector was, you could hear them ticking or something like that. And the films are, and I think it's still the same way, but it's a series of still pictures that are running and making it look animated. But when we start grasping onto something, grasping is a term that means stop. We want things to be like that. So I want to grasp something the way it is, and I want it to stay that way, at least for a while. And so if we can, the idea is to be able to let go of that idea. And it's not just physical grasping, it's mental grasping too. We grasp onto an idea and we don't want to budge, or we grasp onto a feeling. We see something that we find pleasurable, we want to keep coming back to that and have that pleasurable experience, so we're grasping onto these ideas as well. So grasping, attachment, clinging, all these words, basically describing the same thing. But if we're wondering what we should be letting go of in meditation, it's letting go of anything where we feel this ego or the self, being created somehow. And it's not always there. When we're happy and where we're complete, the self, it's just like diminishes and it's almost disintegrating. And so that's when we're peaceful and happy, And of course there has to be some acceptance in that too. And of course, anytime that we have a desire for something to be different than it is, that's another form of grasping too, desire. And so the invitation, tonight is for us to look at that, to see if there's anything that we can let go of. In other words, if there's anything that we don't feel complete with, that we're kind of, unsettled with, there's probably something that we can let go of. Agreed? Yes. Yeah. All right. Boom, bada bang, right?
Bing, bada boom.
Bing, bada boom. Yeah.
You have to explain that to somebody from South Dakota.
Yeah. That's Italian. That's Italian. Yeah. Bing, bing, bada bang. Bing, bada boom. Yeah.
Shane, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Where is this desire to cling? Why is it that we want things to freeze? Why aren't we interested in what will happen? Why do we want to stay in the place that we're
Well, I mean, we can look forward to the next experience, but when we cling, we not necessarily want that object to stay the same, but our fondness of it and our liking of it. So if something is impermanent, it's not only the object, but it's our idea of the object too. That's even more impermanent than the object itself. You know, the analogy of a diamond and how hard it is. It's changing. Microscopically, it'll take many, many years for a diamond to be wore away. Meantime, we're going to be wearing it, you know, or doing something with it, giving them away or whatever. And but it's our fondness of that diamond, you know. I venture there's a lot of people that have a diamond ring that just look at it and go, ugh, you know, they just. But at one time they looked at it and go, oh, that's the most precious thing.
Would you care to elaborate?
Now it's changed.
I heard on the Science Channel that there's a planet somewhere that it's a solid diamond in the center.
That's true.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Let's go find it.
I don't really know if that's true, but if it's true, if we, I can't lie. It's true if we want to believe it, and that would really diminish the value of the diamonds if somebody went up there and got that diamond planet and brought it down and they started chipping away at it. They go, what are we going to do with this big diamond? You know, it's the size of the Earth. You know, and all these. We have all these little diamonds. It'd be like, yeah, get rid of this thing, you know.
It would be worthless.
It would, yeah, it would change everything.
Fly them out, right?
It would change everything.
Why are
But-
these so attached to diamonds anyway?
Because they represent permanence.
I think the most valuable planet in our system is, of course, the Earth because of the water. You know, it's quite simple. So the diamond in our pocket is the water. It's interesting. As long as we can take care of it.
Yeah, doing a great job.
Not yet. That makes me thirsty, actually.
Is it okay if I turn that light off when we're meditating?
Yeah, by all means.
Anybody care, not care?
So we have a fairly small group tonight. I guess that's all right.
They're all home watching you stream.
We're all watching the streaming, yeah.
How many online viewers do you have?
I'm sorry?
How many online viewers do you have?
I can't tell.
Usually, you
I
don't know.
can't tell.
600.
On a
637 right now, I think.
Says a million.
Reached 1 million fast. So please make yourself comfortable. I'll guide us through a little bit of this, and then we'll go into silence. We'll share a little bit afterwards, in about 45 minutes, actually. So bring yourself to a comfortable posture. Keep the back fairly straight. Chin lifted a little bit, if you like. Eyes closed. Place the hands anywhere you like. Just bring your attention to the breath for a few moments. Just bringing our attention to the breath offers us a chance to center, what is called centering in some traditions. And there's a portion of a book called, I believe the book is called I can't remember the name of it. It's something about Zen bones. The name fails me right now. But in the back of the book, and you can find it online, it has, I think, 100 different ways to center. Centering practices. And just bringing your attention to the breath and feeling the breath is one way of centering. And there's many, many more. You can use sounds, sensations. The idea of no thought, thoughtless awareness. Many different ways to center. And lots of times, or many times for a lot of people, to do a setup practice, even before that, is beneficial. Something like counting the breaths, which can actually be another centering practice. But when we count the breaths, we can breathe in and then breathe out for one. And this is the most relaxing way of counting, to acknowledge the length of the exhalation. Breathing in, breathing out for 2. Breathing in, breathing out for 3, and so on. Alternatively, we can breathe in and count for 1, exhale. Breathe in, count for 2, and that's just a little bit more energizing. A lot of us know this practice from working with the breath through different practices, mindfulness of breathing. It's a very nice way to bring attention and awareness to the breath. If we're Another setup practice is metta, and this is a practice that we'll also use at the end of our meditation. Where we wish ourselves loving kindness. We adapt a feeling of loving kindness, usually in the area of the heart, and spread this love from us onto our family members, visualize our friends, even our enemies, people that we meet on occasion, as we meet people in the store, and etc. And we can also do scanning practice, an excellent setup practice. Systematically relaxing areas of the body. Breathing in and exhaling, relaxing the forehead. Relaxing the eyes. Relaxing the cheeks, this area of the face. Relaxing the jaw. Then down into the neck. Just working our way down the body. Inhale and exhale, relaxing the shoulders as we breathe through them. Relaxing the arms, relaxing the biceps, past the elbows into the forearms. Bring this relaxation into the wrists and the hands, and even into the fingers. Inhale and exhale, relaxing the upper back between the shoulder blades. Working with the torso of the body and around the front, the area of the heart chakra. Try to do this all with exhalation of the breath. Exhaling, relaxing the lower middle of the back and the sternum around the front. Exhaling, relaxing the lower back, the lower abdomen. Let this relaxation move into the hips. Then finally into the legs, relaxing the hamstrings and the thighs. Just try relaxing the knees with the exhalation of the breath. See how that feels. With an exhalation, relax the calves and the shins of the legs. Down into the ankles. Now into the feet, relaxing the tops and the soles of the feet. All the way down into the toes. Just release any negativity or any stiffness or soreness in the body. Just let it go. Keep the posture nice and stable and the body completely relaxed at the same time. Then we can do a body sweep. Every time we exhale, just relax the body from the top of the body all the way down to the toes. Each exhalation of the breath, complete relaxation. Inhale, stabilize the posture. Exhale, relax the body, all the muscles, all the tissue, all the tendons, while keeping a very stable, beautiful posture. Then after we do our setup practice, we can again bring our attention to the breath. Center ourselves, feel the breath wherever feels most comfortable for us. Notice if our attention is wandering, which it will do, of course, and then we notice it and then gently bring it back. And we notice what arises without being attached to it or judging it or having commentary about it of any kind. And notice if there's anything that we're trying to hang on to, something that we're trying to change. And just promise ourselves, at least for the next half hour, to just let go of everything that feels like it could become a little bit sticky. This is not a time to plan or create or fix. It's a time for openness and insight. with our attention on the breath, maybe we can bring the breath in a little deeper than normal, bring some energy into the body. Do this a few times, keeping the eyes closed. Really feeling the breath. Thank you. Hopefully we won't run into too many typos on the Loving Kindness Sutra. I guess reportedly there were some last week. We'll get some new copies of this next week.
I still see one.
Yeah, they haven't been corrected at all.
I think there's two
Same as
left,
last week.
Mark, actually.
So we'll recite this together. To attain the state of peace, one skilled in goodness should be able, upright, perfectly upright, gentle, kind, and free from pride, contented, easily satisfied, with limited duties and unburdened livelihood, controlled in senses, discreet, reserved, and not blindly attached to groups. One should not commit the slightest wrong, that the wise might censure, wishing, may there be happiness and security, may all beings be happy. Whatever beings there are, whether feeble or strong, tall or short, large, medium, or small, microscopic or mammoth, leaving none, seen or unseen, living near or far away, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let one not deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither in anger nor in ill will should one wish another harm. Just as a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so, one should cultivate a limitless concern for all living beings. Extend loving kindness throughout the world without exception, above, below, and across, free of obstruction, enmity, or hostility. Whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, one should diligently sustain this mindfulness. This is called sublime living. Without holding narrow views, but being endowed with broad vision and avoiding attachment to sense desires, the virtuous are not born again into this world. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May we meet with spiritual and worldly success. And may we have the patience, courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or any difficulties that we might face in life. Thank you, everyone. Were we able to let go of all that we had to let go of? One of the other reasons that that I teach, and I'm not the only one that teaches that aspect of letting go in meditation, is that the Eightfold Path. You know, the first thing on the path is skillful understanding of the Four Noble Truths and karma, you know, of cause and effect, and then skillful thought, sometimes called skillful intention, is understanding, or to live and practice in such a way that we have loving kindness, which we, this is a type of loving kindness that we just did, and compassion for others, including ourselves, and letting go, the renunciation. And I remember when I first started reading Buddhist books years ago, I thought, for some reason I kept running into this renunciation. I go, now what does that mean? That I have to give up everything? I thought, oh man, this is going to be a hard path. And of course, renunciation and letting go are the same thing. I remember looking, I thought, wow, I had a little 3.5 acre farmette in Wisconsin. And I thought, yeah, it's going to be hard to give this up, I remember sitting out there, I had a little plant nursery. And it wasn't so little. I had, I think 4 greenhouses. They're like 25 by 60, just huge pieces of plastic over them. Mm-hmm. And I remember I'd be sitting out there reading these Buddhist books rather than pulling weeds and stuff like that. And I thought, God, to renunciate the things that you, I read into it wrong. I thought I had to get rid of everything, in order to follow this path. Because I would read it, and I'm reading in such a way that, let go of your attachments, let go of things that aren't necessary in your life, things that could bog you down, things that could cause you problems, just kind of paraphrasing. And I thought, oh, that's such a wonderful way to live, that simplicity. And then I'm thinking, oh no. Now, what does that mean? I had to give up not only, the things that I work so hard to have, but, maybe that means cars and everything, because the people that were writing these books they were living without this stuff, so that means that I should be living without it. And of course, that's not the idea, but the idea is to just be very, very aware of what we're getting attached to. And that's where the suffering will come. So that's why we say as soon as we're attached, the self comes, or the ego, or whatever we prefer to call it. It's there in the form of our suffering. And we could just say the suffering is the self. Just leave it at that. And yeah, I'm sure we've all had hard things to let go of in our lives. Habits are hard to let go of, and that means, we're reading the renunciation, these things about renunciation, and the first thing that comes up to our mind is what these habits, that aren't doing ourselves any good, and they aren't doing anybody else in our lives any good too. We're thinking, well, that's the first thing that has to go. But that, of course, that's the hardest. That's a lot of work. So we just have to, like Chris said, can't we look forward to the future? And of course we can. Especially when we're working towards having a better future for ourselves and others. But even if we get attached to that, it could cause us suffering. Getting used to the idea that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, things are going to be this way, and if they're not, then we get hurt, But I think I said something along the lines the other day that the best we can do is just set the intention. And if we can set the intention and follow it, and not get attached to an outcome, Even in manifestation, people talk about that. We had that discussion the other day. Sometimes people talk about manifesting, but don't get attached to it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. That kind of thing. And yeah, I think that's true for a large part. And the controversy of that is visualize what you want out of life, and keep that in your mind all the time, and it will become yours. but still, we can keep that intention in mind, but not crumble at the idea that it's not going to work. You know, it's not going to, because it never works it works on its own time. You know, when I was younger, I wanted so many different things, and I remember I wrote a list of things. I was driving cross country, and I wrote a list of 10 things that I wanted, kind of bizarre things. And it was like boat. You know, one of them was a boat. I remember that, like not a small boat, but a big boat. You know, a real big boat. But I didn't have any money. I couldn't afford a 25-foot long boat. And all of a sudden, these things they started working for me. And this guy had this boat that was in a fire, and it was just the hull. And he was trying to sell it, and he wanted to sell it so that to somebody that wanted to fix it up, like a huge boat fixer-upper. Mm-hmm. And it was a perfect opportunity. But by that time, I didn't want a boat, but it was staring me right in the face, Things like that, it's not, it's not Buddhist-like, but, the manifesting and aiming our sights towards things that we desire, but if it's good for us and good for other people, we'll get it. I mean, it'll work. But if it isn't good for us and it's not good for other people, then chances are it's not going to manifest, especially the way that we want it to. So again, it's about intention. That's what I'm referring to. And intention is a big thing, and that's a lot of people's inspiration, to intend something, intend a different kind of job, or intend a partner, or my intention was something like this, and it happened with the help of a lot of people, But yeah, it seems like when we look at a lot of the practices of meditation, they fall right into the Eightfold Path, including letting go. So it's something that we should all be very much aware of, the Eightfold Path. And if anybody, I think a lot of you sitting here have gone through the 8 Mindful Steps of Happiness by Bhante Gudarasana. Wonderful book that outlines the Eightfold Path very skillfully. Anything from anybody? John?
So where do you cross the path, the line between being aware of something and clinging to it?
Being aware of it and clinging to it.
Yeah, somewhere at some point, you have something you want, and then you're aware of that. But when does it cross the line from just being aware to clinging?
Yeah, the clinging is, it's a term that we use for, it looks like this in our mind, like we're grasping onto it, but we want it to be a certain way. It's like what this thing does for us, this particular thing does for us, and if we were to let it go, it would cause some kind of suffering for us. And that's it right there. So we can be aware of, we are aware of, I'm aware of a lot of things right now, the lights and people, and like in the area of consciousness, there's a mind object and the subject, coming together. But it's like if I wanted to, if I was really attached to this, and I might be, because I've had this for many, many years. I never thought about it, but if this would cause any kind of suffering for me, if it was gone, then that would be attachment to it. Attachment is mental. It's all mental.
So when you start suffering, clinging.
That's when what?
That's when you're clinging, when you're suffering.
When you, yeah, any kind of suffering, yeah. So the camera here, I have to tell them that John said whenever you're suffering, that's clinging, and yes, yeah. That's like, you know, paraphrasing that is when the ego comes up, as soon as we're clinging, boom, or the self in Buddhism, anatta. And that can be traced to all of our suffering. All of our suffering. And once we get that, it's a life changer. Because it's very subtle. And it's a life changer not only for this life, but for our next life too. Because if we have any kind of attachment to the worldly attachment, we'll come back, according to Buddhist doctrine. We'll come back and do it all again, you know, to learn that lesson. So it's depending on our beliefs, but for sure in this lifetime we've all experienced loss. And a lot of us have experienced a great deal of loss. And so we know what suffering is. But if we understand that loss to such an extent that, you know, there's a reason behind it possibly, that doesn't mean that there's no suffering, but it means that the suffering is reduced. That we understand it from a standpoint of the lesson, or this is, you know, some kind of something I have to work through, you know, something that I should have let go of a long time ago, so, you know, I got that lesson down, these kinds of things. And, you know, when we look at the suffering of a child, when you know, they're happy as heck, you take their toy away and bang, there's some suffering right there. And it's just like a 2-minute lesson for what happens to us. And it can happen to us for, you know, houses and cars and relationships, all these things. So it really is the key to living a complete life, being complete with our possessions. And we can still own things, we can still have things. Of course, we're human, you know, that's what we do, especially lay people. But if we're separated from those and we feel that loss and that suffering is big, you know, we want to see why it's there. Because we get, you know, most of us are afraid of death, of dying, because we have attachment. We're grasping onto this body, this form. And if we started from the end, you know, the end of this cycle anyway, that we weren't attached to this body, then that softens everything up to that point. Because we understand that everything is borrowed. You know, this building is borrowed. We just have to maintain this stuff. If this building isn't maintained, it'll fall apart pretty darn fast. You know, it's unbelievable how fast things fall apart. Even concrete, the roads. You know, 101 not too long ago was just a smooth, as nicest highway. And now I'm, you know, it didn't take long. And of course, the way we see things, that changes even faster than those material things. So that's why we start looking at impermanence, and then we go to this idea of how grasping forms this selfing, where our suffering comes from.
I have a question. I understand all the things you're saying and what John is saying, and I can apply those to possessions, to people, and it's just such a wonderful way to live, to not have the clinging, at least to the degree that I do, but.
That means, behold the underlying truth. That's what the but is.
What I can't apply it to is, at night, if I'm alone, my husband is gone, or, you know, whoever's gone, I'm alone in the house, I turn on all the lights. I mean, the whole town knows when he's gone. I lock all the doors, I barricade everything, and just, I can't. And my daughter says, well, Mom, you just, if something happens, you know, you accept it, this is, you know, she lives in the middle of New York City, so she's accepted the idea of being harmed, and doesn't have anxiety, but I know that's an aversion to suffering or aversion to being harmed. So can you help with how to become unattached to that?
Unattached to, it feels like fear?
Yeah.
Fear of being harmed? Yeah.
No, that was my question too. I was going to ask the same question. Fear and attachment also.
Yeah, attachment, of course, attachment to the body, first of all.
Right.
Being the body being harmed, but you know, something in Buddhism you don't hear a lot is the triggers, but like there's a trigger that causes that fear to come up, and that's being alone, probably being alone from your protector, you know, and so. You know, I mean, it's come from as a subconscious thing. So you want to, you know, of course, want to take a look at that and see, likely when you're a young girl or something happened where you got scared and you felt like you got harmed, or maybe you even did get harmed, and then so that comes back. And in Buddhism, he talked about the mind proliferating and going beyond the scope of reality, and we do that all the time, you know. So what is real? You know, we're just sitting here, breathing, seeing, touching, smelling. And you know, we're hearing. That's the only thing we're doing, you know. But anything beyond that is the mind, you know, proliferating on it. So, you know, of course, fear is based on the future, something that could happen in the future. Could be a 1 minute from now, or it could be an hour from now, and you know, and so you I'm sure you understand that because you've been practicing a long time. You know that you're creating all of this yourself, and as far as I guess, you know, as far as really helping yourself along those lines is find out where that came from. Because we're all human. Some of us would just cherish the opportunity to be by themselves at night in their house, all alone, nobody around. You know, it'd be wonderful if I only could. And the person next door is you know, freaking out because she's all by herself, and it's the mind, you know, creating all these things, but it starts from the ground up, you know. So am I right? Was something happened when you were younger,
No,
or nothing that you recognize?
No, we watch Lock Up every night. Kind of does it, but yeah.
There you go.
Lock Up.
Prison.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
And I do volunteer work in the prisons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you're safe in a prison.
Oh,
I mean,
the safest place to be.
Once you're behind the bars, you know.
It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
Deborah, I think Eckhart Tolle will tell you to just find an appreciation for the now. That when you start to get into the future, fear-based, come back to everything in this moment is perfect. There is nothing going on here but the beauty of this moment, and really in everything you do, whether you're driving the car to get to the next place or you're in your home, if you can just have that, grab that awareness and shift it to that, the appreciation of the right now, that is the healthiest place to be, and that keeps you out of the resentment and the anger of the past, and it keeps you out of the fear of the future.
Yeah, thank you, that's good. Yeah, no, this is helpful, this is very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, just talking about it helps.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we.
I'm alone a lot too, but I don't have that fear. I'm fine by myself, but I have a long-term fear of being alone because I don't have a lot of family. So I just have that.
I have a fear of not being alone.
So
I mean, in a loving way.
I'm not commenting on that.
You know, I go hiking by myself and I go, there's a lot of people in the parking lot. Trail's going to be busy. But yeah.
So that I'm alone. I'm okay with that kind of aloneness. I'm fine with it. But long term, being alone is a fear I carry with me all the time.
Yeah.
Like when you asked her, like, did something happen? And I can't trace it back to anything that has happened to me, but it's just there, you know.
Yeah.
So that was I was going to ask you, is that an attachment? Because I've been fearful of that for the longest time, and I can't let it go, you know. I don't know what that is.
You're describing it as fear, though.
It feels
right?
like fear to me that, oh God, I'm afraid that I'm going to be all alone.
Yeah, it's definitely fear.
It is fear, yeah.
It's definitely fear.
And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm attached to it because I can't let that go.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we, you know, one thing we really want to look for, and it's, again, it's subtle, but we identify with, you know, our fears too. And so we get used to that feeling of fear. You know, we're alone, we get afraid, and we remember that. And the next time that happens again, it's like we remind ourselves, I'm the one that gets fearful when I'm alone. And it just, boom, it just happens. And so it's so almost like we identify with that. Like, and again, it's in the words, I'm the one that gets afraid. And we will get afraid if that's what we're looking at. That's what we're up against. And, you know, false evidence that appears real, it really is something that we look at that could happen, that might happen. I know one client that I had was so fearful that somebody was going to run into the back of her, because about 5 years ago somebody ran into the back of her car, you know. And so she's so busy looking in the rearview mirror that she comes real close to running into people, but she's so worried about what's happening in the back, so fearful about somebody running in the back that she's going to run into somebody. She probably has already. And so, you know, in her case, in order to, you know, to recognize that and put like a reverse trigger on that. So she's thinking about who's behind her, looking at the mirror all the time. If she took like a marker and put an X on the mirror to remind her, you know, like a reverse trigger, the reminder not to be so concerned, not to look at the mirror all the time, to be more concerned about who you're going to run into rather than who's going to run into you. But in the same case, if you, you know, spend moments by yourself and see how you feel, you know, spend, you know, time like, you know, 10, 15, 20, half-hour, you know, increments or something like that, rather than, usually it's like, I know, my husband's gone, I'm going to be alone for 3 hours. Oh, you know, that kind of thing. That's, whoa. But if you can kind of work into smaller stages and say, I'm going to sit here for half hour by myself and I'm going to be fine, you know, and just work into it. Different things that we can do to flush out the subconscious, you know. John?
You know, I heard something about fear once that was very helpful. And it's a totally different perspective. This professor was talking about fear. See, and all of the people in this room, no matter where we came from, you know, our great grandparents were fearful people.
Yeah.
Because when you lived in the primitive world, if you were down on the beach, you know, doing kumbaya and throwing a party, you might get eaten by something. But if you lived it with a certain amount of fear, you survived in the jungle and on the prairie and stuff. And fear is really in our DNA. And so we can kind of look at fear like, you know, this is my friend. Now when it becomes obsessive, of course, that's when we go overboard, that's another thing. But, you know, fear is a tool that helps us survive, and to not walk in front of a diesel truck or, you know, walk down on that side of the street where those people are, you know, and things like that.
Yeah.
So we can wrap fear into our life like this is a tool.
Yeah.
Just like happiness and joy and all the things that are feel good things. But fear can be a survival. I mean, that is our survival.
Yeah.
And the people who aren't here, their ancestors didn't get into their DNA because a lion ate them or something.
Yeah, the fight or flight, you know, and getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger and standing there and going duh or running, you know. So, yeah, cortisol.
Amygdala.
Yeah. Yeah, we can, you know, the warning signal, it's a part of our adrenaline, you know, and cortisol. I'm sorry?
It's a part of our genetic legacy.
Yeah.
Built-in fear.
I was thinking about is it when you're alone and you're thinking, does your thinking automatically start to go negative or dark? Because I think that with a lot of people, when they're around other people, they're usually in communion with other people.
Distraction.
Yeah, and their thoughts are hopefully a positive one.
Yeah.
But it's when the person gets alone, you know, that's when the negative thinking starts.
That's the proliferation that the Buddha was talking
Yeah.
about. You know, this spinning of the thoughts.
It's also that illusion of separateness, the fear of being alone, left alone, being alone has to do with that illusion because there is no separation. And yet we feel that because we're humans that have somehow fallen from grace from that state of being connected with everything. So it's just stuff to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. All good points. I hope that's helpful for everybody.
You could tell that girl with the fear of the rear view to get a Tesla, and she has to. It'll stop for you. So you don't have to worry about rear ending anymore.
Yeah,
That's a solution.
Yeah.
Get a
That's
Tesla.
an idea.
that's true. Spend a few extra dollars and get that fear away.
Then she can look in the rear view all she wants. She won't rear end anymore.
She'll develop a new fear though.
That's ridiculous.
Well, thank you. We do have another meditation on Thursday nights. That's starting next week at the temple.